So we'll generate our motivation. Let's take a minute or two and be aware of the worry that you have towards other living beings. So just think of who you worry about, why you worry about them, what the effect of the worry is. If you don't worry so much about others, then check how much you worry about yourself, your health, your achievements, and so on. So just do a little checking about worry. And see how that worry prevents you and interferes with actually caring about other living beings and acting for their benefit. And so see if you can drop that worry and really open your heart towards other living beings. And using the compassion, the care that you have for them to motivate you in your Dharma practice to overcome hindrances to your spiritual awakening. Worrying's a big waste of time, isn't it? Yeah, we could be doing so many better things with our time besides worry. Okay, so we're on the seventh limb prayer. We're speeding along. So these practices of refuge, bodhicitta, four immeasurables, now the seven limbs in the mandala, these come in so many different sadhanas. And we always start our meditation sessions off with these kind of recitations and contemplations. So it's good to really understand them well. And the seven limb, which we'll start on today, is there's many different versions of it. This is the short version. There's longer versions in the King of Prayers, the first couple of pages of that. And there's many other versions. So it's something that's quite widespread in the Tibetan tradition, also the Chinese tradition, probably Vietnamese as well. Yeah, and it's these seven very beautiful ways of thinking that really train our mind and steer our mind in a good direction. So this is something nice to do if you have these seven memorized when you're on a long flight and you're tired of watching these awful movies. In fact, you don't even want to start watching these awful movies. Then you can sit and think about these seven, and yeah, it's very nice. Okay, so These 7 are for purification and for creation of merit, which are 2 practices that we're really encouraged to do. So it's not just about listening to teachings and meditating, it's to make the listening and meditating effective, we have to prepare our mind. So our mind is like a field, and if you're going to plant the seeds, like listening to teachings, then you can't just go out there and stick some seeds in rocky ground that has bubblegum wrappers and knapweed, you know, because your seeds aren't going to grow. So you need to get the bubblegum wrappers and the knapweed and the rocks and everything out. So that's like purification. And in our case, what we're purifying is the seeds of negative karmic actions that we've done. And then we also prepare the land by adding water and fertilizer. So that is like the process of creating merit or positive potential or good energy or goodness. There's not a very good translation for the term. It's punya in Sanskrit. And merit is not a good translation. It makes you think of stars on your spelling test when you were a little kid. Positive potential. Nah. What else? Goodness. So there's not a good English word for it, but you're kind of stocking up good energy and good dispositions in your own mind stream. Okay. So this is very much a practice, 7 limbs of cleansing and enriching. Okay. And some branches, some of these 7 go more on the cleansing side and some go more on the enriching side. But actually, all of them have a little bit of both, okay, when you look at it. Okay, so the first one, I'll just list them. Prostrations or bowing, then making offerings. And third one is confessing. 4th is rejoicing. 5th is asking the Buddha to remain. And 6th is requesting teachings. And 7th is the dedication of merit. Okay, so going back to the first one, bowing or prostrating, this is a practice in not only all Buddhist traditions, but I think many religions. Yeah, you in some way physically lower yourself, and it is, it's a way of reducing our arrogance and our pride. And as we've talked about before, arrogance makes it very difficult for us to learn anything, because if you know it all, then what can you learn? Yeah. And so bowing down helps us to release that arrogance. It also helps us to see the good qualities of whoever or whatever we're bowing down to. In this case, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So it makes us reflect on, the Dharma's qualities of being able to liberate us, the Sanghas as being a good guide, and the Buddha as being our teacher. Okay, so, we contemplate those qualities. There's whole lots of volumes of teachings on the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha that we won't go into right here. Read volume 4 of the Library of Wisdom and Compassion. Okay, which it doesn't have a title yet. So, prostrating also is a way of purification. And that's how it's primarily used, is to purify. Because there's nothing like having your nose in the ground. Okay? Yeah. And the thing is, when we've done negative actions, um, we have to make ourselves a little bit humble to be honest with ourselves. Yeah, because otherwise we justify and rationalize and deny and suppress and repress and what other psychological words are there? But we do all these things to avoid, um, just dealing with our own actions and taking responsibility for them. So, uh, getting our nose in the ground is a way of opening ourselves up and releasing that defense mechanism, which is very involved with arrogance. Yeah. Um, and releasing that so that we can really honestly say, yeah, I made a mess. Okay? So we have the practice in Tibetan Buddhism of making 100,000 prostrations, and then you add 10%. So it becomes 111,111. And it's not the number that's important. It's you have a number so that you have the opportunity to do one with full concentration and good motivation, which isn't so easy. Yeah. But it's a very wonderful practice and really kind of helps you reflect on your life and open things up and purify. Okay, so we bow with our body, speech, and mind. Physically, we bow, but it's not just physically. If it were just physically, then you could go to the gym. Yeah, and instead of 100,000 prostrations, you could do 100,000, whatever on your treadmill or your whatever equipment they have there. Okay? So it's not just physical exercise. It's, what you're doing with your body and then your speech, because with your speech, you're reciting the names of the Buddha or you're reciting the qualities of the Buddha, something that's putting you in touch with the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And with our mind also, we're imagining. You create this whole Pure Land in your imagination. Yeah, so there's the Buddha, this body radiating golden light, surrounded by all the other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and Arhats, and they're all looking at you and very happy with what you're doing. They're not looking like, oh, this one again. Scowling like, oh, I got to deal with this sentient being again. What do they want? The Buddha doesn't look at us that way. They're all quite happy that we're doing something really useful and productive in our lives. Okay. So bowing is more on the purification side, but it also creates merit because we're learning to develop respect for those worthy of respect. And respect is, we have a shortage of it in this country, I think. Yeah. Somehow, I don't know, I don't think democracy cancels out respect. I think democracy should make us respect other people more, because we're all participating together. But nowadays, respect in civil discourse is really at a low level, isn't it? It's name calling and, just ripping people apart online and bullying and, that just tears, it doesn't make us happy inside and it tears at our social fabric. And so I think it's very important that we all develop respect for other people. Yeah, that we live in the country with, even though we may have different political ideas or different belief systems or whatever. Okay, and so somehow bowing down, it it's saying I'm not the only person who's important. Okay, and we're bowing to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and we can imagine, we're supposed to imagine actually, all sentient beings around us in human form bowing together with us. So that also creates a sense of respect because we're all facing the triple gem and doing this together. Yeah. So that's why I told you a few days ago when we do our chanting, like we'll do this evening, when we're bowing, I have the whole US government around me, and it's a way to create respect. I mean, certainly for the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, but respect for these people and realizing, yes, they have the Buddha potential, even though in this life, at this moment, their minds may be rather confused. Okay. And it makes me think, have hope that in people's ability to change and and be good examples for the country. Yeah, because I think that's very much what we need now. Okay, so that's bowing. When we bow, our hands are together, holding. We're imagining with our thumbs tucked in, imagining that we're holding a jewel, which is our own Buddha potential, our Buddha nature. Okay, and then we touch the crown, the forehead, the throat, and the heart. Okay, so the crown is like the Buddha's crown protuberance, and that indicates the great amount of merit that he created to become a Buddha. And then here represents purifying our body, our speech, and our mind. Okay, so our mind is here, it's not there. Yeah, mind is here. So body is here. Yeah. So, if you have, think very quickly, then when you touch here, you think of white light coming from the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas into your crown, purifying negativities of body and bringing the inspiration of the Buddha's physical qualities. When we touch our throat, then the red light from the Buddha's throat into ours, purifying our bad speech and bringing the inspiration of the Buddha's speech, and then touching our heart. When we talk about heart in Buddhism, we're not talking about this thing that beats. We're talking about the center of our chest. Okay. So, and then here, thinking blue light comes from the Buddha's heart into us, purifying mental negativities and bringing the blessings of the Buddha's mind. Then, when we go down, we first put our hands down. Yeah, not your knees. Yeah, we first, because you'll hurt your knees if you put your knees down first. So when you go down, first put your hands, then your knees, then you touch your head on the ground, and then you push yourself up. You don't stay on the ground quickly. These are Tibetan style prostrations. The reason for coming up quickly is it symbolizes coming out of samsara quickly. Okay? So those are what we call the 5-point or short prostrations. The long ones are the ones we do when we're, doing the practice of the 35 Buddhas, which you've been doing here, but I don't think there's much room to do the long prostrations. Okay. Uh, okay. So it's a very nice practice. Chinese bowing is different. That's what we're doing tonight. Theravada bowing is also different. Okay. But they all have the same meaning and the same purpose. Okay, then the second one, so that's I reverently prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. And the second one is making offerings and present clouds of every type of offering, actual and mentally transformed. So that's the practice of generosity with regard to the Buddha Dharma Sangha. So we're making offerings to the Buddha Dharma Sangha. Okay, so they often talk of clouds, the sky filled with clouds of offerings. What it means is the sky filled with offerings. You don't have to imagine a lot of clouds. Some are dark and some are white, and some are, rain clouds, and some are. No, it just means the whole sky's filled with offerings, and uh, and so it's important. Okay, the actual offerings are the ones we put on the altar. The mentally transformed ones are the ones we visualize. Because the purpose of offering is to create a mind that takes delight in giving and in sharing. You don't have to be rich to do this practice. Okay, so this practice is open to everybody, no matter rich or poor. Yeah, it's good to at least have something physical that we put on the altar. What's nice is we have water bowls, so everybody, usually can offer water. Although in some places you have too much water, and in some places not enough. I lived in India at one place at one time when our water went out, and then you really, water was very precious, and you were offering something quite precious to the three jewels. But it's something everybody could do. Offering food, again, when we offer food, we should offer what's nice. We don't take the old food and put it on the altar and keep the good food for ourselves. And we don't offer the food in the morning and then at lunchtime take it down. Or whenever we're hungry, take it down. Or it's because then it's like we're putting it on the altar just rather than putting it in the fridge. But the whole purpose is to eat it ourselves. So no, we really have to have a sense of offering it. And then you usually take it down in the evening and then distribute it to, your friends or family or whoever. We offer candles and flowers. Nowadays, actually, the offering isn't of candles, it's of light. And so we use electric lights here. It's much safer than candles. I've lived in a few places, Dharma centers, where they've had fires due to candles on the altar. So you don't want that. And even these kinds of things can start a fire, which is why we unplug them at night. Yeah. But offering light is also very beautiful. We offer incense and perfume, although many people nowadays are sensitive to the smells of incense and perfume. So what's nice in Chinese monasteries, you have a big incense pot outside the temple. Okay? Then everybody can offer as much incense as they want without people inside the temple choking and coughing. Okay? Or people who have reactions to perfumes and scents and so on. Yeah, so that's why we have the bottle of scent here. It's closed. Yeah, because some people have told us, please, it gives me a headache, it makes me feel ill. So we keep it closed. Okay, so we have water for drinking, water for washing the feet. Okay, the 7 water bowls are one offering. The 8 offerings are another way to make offerings, and this corresponds to ancient India, how they treated their guests. So when guests arrive, you would offer them water to drink because they just got done walking, water to wash their feet because it was dirty. Then you gave them flowers, incense, lights, okay, perfume. Then it's dinner time, okay? Then after dinner, entertainment. Yeah, music, okay? So that's, the meaning of the 8 offerings there. Basically, whatever you think is something beautiful and meaningful to you, you can offer. I had a funny experience with this one time, because I've told you all about my long hair, okay, and how attached I was to it. It was so beautiful and blah blah, and so I had to do a lot of meditation to get myself to the point where I could actually cut it. And I was in Nepal when I did at a Dharma course and sharing a dormitory room with a bunch of other women. And so I cut my hair, and this was a big thing for me. It was like really indicative. It meant a lot. And I had to work very hard on my mind. It was really a symbol of giving up attachment. Well, it was giving up attachment. So I took part of the hair and I put it on the altar in the room I shared, and because I thought it was very significant. And then one of my roommates came in and said, "Who put their hair on the altar?" Yeah. So, we have different things that we consider meaningful. Yeah. Sometimes when somebody passes away, we want to put them on a picture of them on the altar, thinking that in our minds it means they're close to the Buddha. Actually, we don't put them on the same altar with the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, because the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are the ones that we take refuge in, that will lead us to awakening. Our friends and relatives, their ability to lead us to awakening, maybe waking up in the morning is, but the rest they can't help us so much with. So we would put another table to the side and put the picture on there. Okay. Yeah. In Chinese temples, you have Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva, who usually has his own altar in the back of the room. And then people put tablets with their relatives' names on it, or they put the ashes in a vase and put it on there. And that's in the back of the room. And so, it means kind of wishing their relatives well when they die. Yeah. Even though some of them send the banknotes to hell. Yeah. Okay, so actual offering, then clouds of offerings. So we offer really beautiful things. Yeah. So fruit without pesticides, without seeds, without skin, unless you like the skin. Just whatever you consider very beautiful. So, maybe you have I usually encourage this with the mandala offering, but, especially putting things you're attached to. So, you're craving, there's a Mercedes and there's a Jaguar and there's this brand new house in a rich neighborhood and there, and so it, you can think of whatever your mind is stuck on craving and imagine that and offer that as well. Yeah. And it's very nice to offer nature scenes in your mind, you know, clean, clear water and brooks and lakes and stars, skies where you can see the stars at night and flowers and so on, okay? Some of the offerings have symbolism as well. Flowers usually symbolize impermanence because they don't stay very long, do they? Yeah, not perfume, incense symbolizes pure ethical conduct. Yeah, they say people of pure ethical conduct have a very beautiful fragrance. I think it means they have good vibes. Yeah. Light indicates wisdom. Yeah. Food indicates concentration because people who develop very strong concentration don't need to eat a lot of food. It says that they're nourished by the food of concentration. Okay. Making offering is more on the side of creating merit, yeah, but it also purifies our stinginess. Okay, so it performs both functions. And it's a very, very nice practice to do, especially, if you have an altar in your house first thing every morning, brush your teeth, but, as part of just your morning ritual to make offerings, put your offering bowls up, offer some food, it's a very, very nice thing to do to start the day. And it's especially good to do with little kids. Yeah, it's a way children can join in and learn about the practice. I stayed with one friend, and her daughter was maybe 3 or 4 at the time. And every morning, when they got up, her daughter would offer a goodie to the Buddha, and put it on the altar. And the Buddha always gave her a goodie too. But it was very sweet because this little girl learned how to practice the Dharma. She grew up, being a practicing Buddhist. Okay, then the third one is I confess all my destructive actions accumulated since beginningless time. Okay, so this is confession or purification, however you want to put it. It's actually, I looked up in the dictionary once, confess is to open up and reveal our negativities. The word repent, as much as I don't like that word, it's too Christian for me. Actually, I think the word repent is better here, because repent means that you are confessing it, and you also want to make amends. So it has both meanings, not just the confession, but also making amends. Yeah, and that's very important, with our destructive actions to make amends in one way or another. Okay, so every 2 weeks, the Sangha community, we have our posada or sojung ceremony where we confess transgressions in our precepts and we make amends, by reciting all of our precepts, in together, in a ceremony. Okay, so another way to do this is just part of our daily practice. Just thinking about our destructive actions, not only the ones we've done this today, okay, or this week, but earlier in our lives, and things that we could have done in previous lives too, because we've had beginningless previous lives, so who knows what in the world we've done. Okay? And I know sometimes you hear about people doing certain actions. You think, how could anybody act like that? And then time goes on and you know somebody who did that, and it becomes very real. And then you start thinking, well, who knows who I was in a previous life? And maybe I did that. Maybe I did that I acted that way in a previous life. And I definitely don't want to do that anymore. So, we can purify things that we can't even remember. Yeah. And I think that this process of purification is, like I said yesterday, is also very good psychologically, just to open it up and, I messed up. So there's 4 opponent powers that we practice with it. The first one is regret. Then I call it restoring the relationship. And then third is making a determination not to do it again. And fourth is some kind of remedial action. Different texts will have these 4 in a different order, but regret is almost always the first one. So you'll notice it says regret. It does not say guilt. Okay? So guilt and regret are very different. And we have, if you grow up in a Christian culture, sometimes you have the idea, even lurking in the back of your mind, because it got planted there when you were 3 years old, that the worse you feel for doing something, the more you're making amends for it. So the more you hate yourself and belittle yourself and tell yourself you're worthless and useless, the more you're purifying, the more you're atoning. And that's not the Buddhist idea at all. Totally not the Buddhist idea. Yeah, because sitting there and berating ourselves does not do anything good. It doesn't improve our ethical conduct at all. It just gets us stuck. So regret, and I like this example. The stoves that the burner's hot, but they're not, when you turn it off, it's not red, but it's still hot. If you put your hand accidentally, on that burner and your hand hurts, do you regret it? Yes. Do you feel guilty? No. Okay. So you see the difference? Regret is, I did something that wasn't very smart. Guilt is, oh, mea culpa, culpa mea culpa, culpa mea. I'm so bad. I can't even say culpa mea. I have to say mea culpa. I don't even have it right. I'm not even authorized to. Yeah, you see, I can't even do anything right. Okay, so, yeah, so regretting is to simply, gee, I did something that harmed somebody else and harmed myself. Okay, because remember, harming others harms us. Yeah, we have to get that very clear in our own mind. Every time we harm others, including mentally planning and visualizing harming them, we are harming ourselves. Yeah. And we see how instead of realizing that, we often rejoice. Oh, I gave them a taste of their own medicine. um, and to see how ignorant we are, you know? We talk about deep-rooted ignorance, especially of karma and its effects. Yeah. When we feel happy and like we've accomplished this good purpose because we've harmed somebody, yeah, we're just creating more negative karma for ourselves that we'll have to experience the result of later. Yeah. So when we rejoice, we should rejoice at virtue, not at negativity. Okay. And so also, when you read different books or you read the news or hear the news, be careful what you rejoice on, you know? Be careful about it because we accumulate karma by rejoicing. So, for example, we want fairness, okay? So Scott Pruitt resigned. That's good, you know. It hopefully will help this country, hopefully. But to then go, oh, I'm so glad that beep 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 resigned, and I hope they press charges against him, and he's really a jerk. That kind of thinking, only harms ourselves. Yeah. And it's very different than saying, okay, it's good he resigned. It's better for people. But then on top of that, wishing him harm. Okay. So, we have to be careful because sometimes there may be people we disagree with. And then when something bad happens to them, yeah. So we don't want to get pleasure from doing that. Okay, so regretting is owning up, yeah, revealing, um, and not feeling ashamed. It's learning to be transparent. So there's different kinds of shame, okay, and this word it's very difficult to use accurately. Some Buddhist translators use it, but many, because it has a double meaning in English, sometimes people mistake what it means in Buddhism. So shame can mean kind of like regret. Gee, I wish I had done better. I feel badly about what I did. I'm ashamed of my behavior. I didn't need to act that way. So that kind of shame, that's okay. That's kind of similar to regret. But what we often use the word shame for is, I have a lot of shame, meaning I just feel worthless, like defective product, something is intrinsically wrong with me. Or we use the word shame as in somebody shamed me. They just hammered, they hammered me. Um, and maybe I made a small mistake, but they made it into a huge thing. Or maybe I didn't make any mistake, but they just wanted to humiliate me by shaming me in public. Okay. So you see that the word shame in English has multiple meanings. Yeah. So that's why I tend not to use it in Buddhism, because people can so easily get the wrong meaning. Okay, but regret is, I made a mistake and I'm sorry for what I did. I wish I hadn't done that. Yeah. So again, it's not like browbeating and drama. Then the second one, okay, regrets the first. Second one is, I call it restoring the relationship. That's not the actual translation. The actual translation is something like relying on the object, which doesn't tell you much. But what it means is that whoever we acted in a negative way with, we restore the relationship by having a virtuous, cultivating a virtuous attitude towards them. So if we did something harmful to the Buddha Dharma Sangha, then to restore the relationship, we take refuge. If we did something harmful to other sentient beings, we restore the relationship by generating bodhicitta. Okay? So it really involves changing our mind, changing our attitude about whoever it was that we harmed. Because if we're still angry at somebody, then regretting the harsh words we spoke to them, we can't really do that completely and sincerely because we're still angry at the other person. And one part of our mind is saying, okay, I spoke harshly, but they deserve it. And okay, I regret doing that, but I hope I hurt their feelings, you know? So it, we really have to change our attitude towards whoever it was that we harmed. Yeah. Maybe we cheated somebody out of something. Maybe we lied to them. Maybe we, were greedy and coveted their possessions or their partners or whatever. So just instead cultivating a bodhicitta attitude towards them, or at least one of compassion. Okay, then the third one is making a determination not to do it again. Sometimes they put the one of remedial behavior third. Okay, so you can do it any order you want. But the one of, if we do remedial behavior, put that as the third, because like in the Vajrasattva practice, that's the third one that comes. Then it means that you do something. Yeah, you do some kind of virtuous activity. So it could be prostrations, offerings, reciting the names of the Buddhas, visualizing one of the Buddhas, for example, Vajrasattva, reciting Vajrasattva's mantra. It could be volunteering time at a homeless shelter, at a hospital, at some kind of charity or some organization that's doing something really good for others. Volunteering time, volunteering your energy at the Dharma Center, at the monastery, whatever. Okay, doing something virtuous, engaging. So it could be, through Dharma practice, or it could be through offering service. And then the fourth one, or sometimes I put it as the third one, is making a determination not to do it again. And so here you're saying, okay, I not only regret doing it, but I'm going to do my best to abstain in the future. So there may be certain things that we've done in the past that we have a very strong attitude about, like, I will never do that again. Yeah. Do you have certain things that you did in the past where you really blew it big time and your mind is very clear, I will never do that again? Okay, so if you can feel comfortable saying, I will never do it again, say that. That's really good. Otherwise, it can be really helpful to give yourself a certain period of time. Like if it's idle talk, gossip, can you really say you're never going to do it again? We can say, I aspire never to do it again. But maybe we need to give ourselves, okay, in the next 3 days, I will not gossip about other people. Okay. And so give ourselves a period of time in which we really abandon that activity, very consciously. And then see, when we come to the end of those 3 days, see if you can do it a 4th day, or see if you can do it a 5th day. So that can be very, very helpful, giving ourselves time periods and then really trying to keep to them. Okay, so that's the 4th one. Then the 5th one is rejoicing in the virtue of all holy and ordinary beings. Okay, so going back to the 4th one, so you can see that one's primarily on the purification side, but it also creates merit. Then the 5th one, rejoicing in the virtues of all holy and ordinary beings. This is more on the creating merit side, but it also purifies. And what does it purify or counteract? Jealousy. Okay? Because when we're jealous, we can't stand others, good circumstances or virtue or opportunities. Yeah, so rejoicing and jealousy are polar opposites, okay? So to here, rejoicing, very important. So we rejoice at the virtues of ordinary beings, our friends, the people we know around us, other people that we hear about who do virtuous actions. We rejoice in their virtue. And we rejoice in the virtue of the holy beings, of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and Arhats and so on. Okay? And rejoicing, they say, is the lazy person's way to create a lot of merit. Because when you rejoice in other people's virtue, you create merit. Yeah. When you rejoice in the merit of those who are more highly realized than you, then they say you create half the merit that they do by doing the action, even though you haven't done the action, just by rejoicing. So this is why it's called for the lazy person, because you don't even need to do it. You just rejoice. Yeah. If you're rejoicing about some virtue that somebody is kind of equal to you, you attain equal merit to them. If you rejoice at the virtue that somebody who is, more corrupt than we are, their virtue, then we create even more virtue than they created. Okay? So it's an excellent practice. You can do it lying in bed. Yeah. Really. You can do it in your lazy chair? Lazy boy, yeah. You just put the recliner on and you sit there and you rejoice at everybody's virtue. And it's a wonderful practice because afterwards you feel so happy. Because what you're doing is thinking about all the goodness there is in the world. Okay? So it's the opposite of reading the news. Although sometimes in the news there's things to rejoice at. Yeah? But sometimes, just thinking about all the goodness in the world that we so often take for granted and don't really appreciate adequately. And so this practice of rejoicing reminds us of all that goodness. It makes the mind very, very happy, very relaxed. Yeah. And one of my teachers, when he leads the seven limb, he often stops right after this link, and I think it's probably because his disciples suffer from a lot of jealousy, so he wants them to sit and meditate on rejoicing at that moment, because if you can rejoice, it really creates harmony with the people that you live with, Whereas if you're jealous of them, then it creates so much disharmony, doesn't it? Okay, then the next one is please remain until cyclic existence ends. So we're asking the Buddha to, and we're asking our teachers, please, to have a long, healthy life. Okay? What we're really saying, it comes in the form of, please. I mean, the Buddha's going to stay until samsara ends. That's already a given. So why do we need to ask? Okay, we need to ask because that helps us to see the value of encountering the Buddha's teachings. Okay, otherwise we take our teachers, for example, for granted. We take our connection with the Dharma for granted. Yeah, but when we have to, request, like yesterday was His Holiness's birthday, so we dedicate for his long life and good health. Yeah, we request him to teach us. That pulls us out of our apathy and pulls us out of taking the Dharma and the presence of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha for granted. Okay, so what we're really doing when we're requesting them to live long is we're saying to ourselves, pay attention, take advantage of meeting the Dharma and meeting your teachers now. Yeah. So that's the sixth. Wait a minute. Rejoicing was the fourth one, sorry. Requesting here for them to live a long time is fifth. The sixth one is requesting our teachers and the Buddha to turn the wheel of Dharma for sentient beings. So again, this too pulls us out of our have the teachings for granted. Yeah. Oh, the Dharma Center's there, and it's a whole half an hour ride away, and I'm tired today, and my little toe hurts. I really don't feel like driving there. I know it's good to go to the teachings, but there's also something really good on the tube tonight that I want to watch. Yeah. So, you don't go to the teachings. Or there's a retreat and it sounds interesting and I should go. Yeah, and I want to go, but there's this family gathering, or my friend is getting married. Or there's this big party going on. All my friends are having a big party. And, and that happens right in the middle of the retreat. So I don't want to miss out on this big social event. And, they have another retreat later on. I'll go to that one. Okay? Oh, she's not talking about me, is she? But, so we have all sorts of things where we just take the Dharma for granted. Yeah? And that attitude doesn't help us at all because our teachers are not going to live forever. And, we want the Dharma to exist in a pure form forever. But look what happened in Tibet. Yeah, look what happened in mainland China. Look what happened in Vietnam. Making the pure Dharma last forever takes a lot of effort. Yeah, so we have to appreciate it and make these kind of requests and then put in effort, in those countries where communism really destroyed religion or at least inhibited it a lot, then it's our job now to revitalize it. Yeah. So you see what's going on in the West, in India, in other places. And it's very important. I think the existence of the immigrant Buddhists in this country is very important for revitalizing the Dharma, as well as in India, supporting the monasteries and nunneries in India, very important, yeah, because they're really reestablishing the Dharma where it faced a lot of persecution. Okay, so we shouldn't take these things for granted and say, well, there's something more interesting to do today, or whatever. Because we don't know. We don't know. Okay, one of the first things the Buddha taught is impermanence. I had one friend, Singapore man, and we were, anyway, I don't need to tell you the whole story. Anyway, he went to Nalanda in India. It's near Bodh Gaya. And he came back, because Nalanda is, its ruins, was this incredible monastic university for many centuries in India. And the prayer we said yesterday, it's, to the masters of the Nalanda tradition, these incredible sages and practitioners who lived and practiced at Nalanda. And now you go there and it's rubble. I think there's some people trying to start a Buddhist university there again, but basically it's kind of, last time I was there anyway, it was, it's a heritage site protected by the government because it's a has-been. Anyway, he went there and he came back and he was so moved, and he just said, to think of the greatness of Nalanda and then to go there now and just see stones. And to think of the access I have now to the Dharma. And in the future, it could be just stones. He said it really moved his heart, quite a bit. Yeah, so that kind of mind is a virtuous mind, Also, I think appreciating what the lineage teachers have done to preserve the Dharma. And when you think, India was the glorious land where the Dharma was centered. And to get there from China or, Central Europe, Central Asia, where the Dharma flourished, many centuries ago, huge Buddhist community. To get to India from Tibet, from Southeast Asia, from Indonesia, to get there at all was very difficult. So the Chinese have the tale of Xuanzang, who was, what century did he go in? 6th, 7th? Anyway, he, walked from China to India, going over the mountains and everything. It took him years. And, many people in his party died going to India to get the texts and to receive teachings from the teachers. And then, spending time there, getting the Dharma, then walking all the way back to China. Yeah. Same thing with the Tibetans. When you hear the story of Atisha going, the story of Yeshe the king in Tibet, and the story of Marpa and different people who went to India to get the teachings and the lineages and bring them back. When we hear the story of Shantarakshita, an Indian sage who brought the ordination to Tibet and started it. Yeah. When we hear the story of, why am I forgetting his name? Gompa Rapsel. Yeah, it sounds like that. Anyway, he was a Tibetan who went to the border with China and he was one of the first, actually, I got it wrong. There was some Tibetan monks who went to the border with China and joined with some Chinese monks, and Lobsang Gompa Rapsal was the first monk that they ordained, who then came back to Tibet and helped to rejuvenate the ordination lineage. Yeah, because there had been, after Buddhism first came to Tibet, then there was a king that destroyed it, that really persecuted it. And so, you had to rejuvenate the ordination lineages, and you had to rejuvenate the teaching lineages. So these people, they didn't just get in a plane and fly a few hours. They didn't drive a half an hour in a comfortably heated car across town for the Dharma. They risked their lives, and many people died in the process of them getting the teachings and the scriptures and bringing them back. And I think it's very important that we think of what these people went through and how we have benefited by what they have done, and not take the Dharma for granted, and not take their sacrifices for granted. And there's a lot of people, we hear Xuanzang, we hear Yeshe, we hear a few names, but there's hundreds, if not thousands, of people whose names we don't know, who were in those parties and who perished along the way, or who even made it and brought the teachings back, and helped start monasteries and spread the Dharma, but they aren't the famous ones. We only know the names of the famous ones. But it's important to remember that there's so many people historically involved in our having the opportunity to encounter the Dharma now. So many. And so to really appreciate that, I think that's quite important, because we tend to have, like push button. Of course, I should have this convenience, I push a button, I click, I can order anything, I just click on it, and then it comes to me. I don't have to exert any effort, In fact, often we come to the Dharma with a consumer mentality. Yeah. Well, I'm looking for, who's worthy of me, having me as a student, which Dharma center is going to be privileged. Yeah. Because you go to the Dharma center, and I want this, and I want this, and I want this. And the Dharma center doesn't provide everything you want. Well, I'll just take my business elsewhere. Your teacher doesn't teach the topics you want. They don't teach at the time you want. Yeah. They push your buttons. Well, I'll take my business elsewhere. There are lots of Dharma teachers, lots of Dharma centers. Yeah. So it's important to appreciate what we have. Okay, so we got through 6 of the 7. The 7th one is dedicating. So that you're sharing your merit, another practice of generosity. Okay. Some people translate it as transferring the merit. That is an inaccurate translation. We cannot transfer our merit. Merit is not like my bank account with merit and your bank account with merit, and I'm making a transfer. No. Okay. We are, why does it have to be wired? Can I do it through PayPal? Can I? Is it a wire transfer? Can I send a money order with a merit order? No, it's we're dedicating the merit. We're steering the merit so it ripens in a certain way, and that's important to do, because and we steer it for long-term virtuous conditions, like the enlightenment of ourself and others, instead of short-term, like, may I win the lottery. So very important to have a really expansive mind, when we dedicate. So we're going to dedicate now.